Hey, good morning from Kansas City. Well, actually, St. Joe is where I am, and that's where Vahe Gregorian is because I recognize the background. Welcome to SportsBeat Live, presented by University of Kansas Health System. This is the weekly show where we talk about the Kansas City Royals with folks in the media who know them best. And today that is Vahe and Lynn Worthy. And we want to share the conversation with you. So please send us questions and comments, and we'll talk Royals baseball with you. So, all right. So the Royals, after taking 3 out of 4 from the Red Sox this weekend, improved to 44-65, which puts them on a pace to finish 65-97. But as this season continues in the final 2 months, it seems to be less about the record and more about who is playing for the Royals and how this lineup might look for 2023. Lynn, a lot has happened since the last time we talked with the Royals lineup. Call it a youth movement, call it the future is now, but at least for the Royals and maybe every team that's 20 under 500 or so and out of the playoff picture, like the Royals, is saying this, but it's especially true with the Royals. They are absolutely getting a glimpse of what their future lineup might be, and at least it makes the Royals interesting. And we're all kind of curious to see what these young players are going to do and what they're going to be. Do you agree that it's become a little bit more of an interesting season than maybe a month or so ago?
I think it's been an interesting last week. I was just thinking as we were getting ready to start here today about last week when we did this show. It was the morning of the trade deadline, so none of those the Benintendi trade had happened, but the Merrifield and Gallagher trades happened later that day. So a lot has happened in the week. Just thinking of that day. I mean, and obviously the trade details and everything have been covered, but it was just sort of one of those, I guess, behind the curtain moments was when that trade took place. So they're in Chicago. Getting ready to start that, I guess it was the second game of the series in Chicago, and trade deadline is at 5 p.m. Central Time, but deals can get done up until 5 p.m. and then guys get informed and actually things go through after that. It just has to be paperwork done by that time. And the clubhouse closed, I think it was 5:05 or 5 o'clock. And, people who aren't familiar, the clubhouse closes at a certain time. It's not like we can go in and out whenever we want. Clubhouse closes at a certain time, you're out. So we're going out to the field to watch batting practice. And as we're told clubhouse is closed and we're heading out to the field, you happen to look around and you happen to see the clubhouse manager take Whit Merrifield into the manager's office, and you say, uh-oh. And then you go outside and you start to see, things hit on Twitter, and literally the players are in front of us doing their stretching lines, and they're looking at all of us going, what happened? Like that's how the thing played out. There's teammates of theirs going through stretching lines, looking at us going, what happened? The reporters who were on the road, and we literally told them that it was Whit. And they were all like, "Are you serious?" That's how the things unfolded. And then you started to see through batting practice, guys would come back into the clubhouse because Whit never came out of the clubhouse. Guys went in to say goodbye to him, and then they came back out to the field for batting practice. And Cam Gallagher had told us later that he actually went in to say goodbye to Whit, and that's when he was informed that he'd been traded. He got pulled aside as he was going in to say goodbye to Whit. So it was just a little bit of a taking people behind the scenes and how that thing unfolded last week, because it's just crazy to think that a lot has happened in a week. And then obviously they played that night, and guys won't, I don't think, ever, make that excuse. But it makes me wonder about a guy like, Brad Keller pitched that night. I know Whit's one of his closest friends. He didn't look the same on the mound that night, and he wouldn't make that excuse. But, I mean, a couple hours before game time, one of his closest guys got shipped out, and I think that maybe took a little bit of steam out of him. But
that was the 9-2 loss, I think, too.
Yeah, and it was one of those weird outings. The thing that I remember was he didn't get, I think, any swing and miss on his fastball, which is not common at all for Brad Keller. And again, afterwards, he wasn't making any excuses. But at the same time, you talk to guys in that clubhouse after the game, and they talked about how emotional it was to see those guys go, because those are two guys that had been around for a long time. I think they both debuted in like 16, 17. You know, they'd gone back down, but come back up. Been in the system their entire careers, had played with these guys since they'd all been in the majors. Guys that they've been close with in the offseason. I think Cam lives, or at least spends offseason near like Dozier and O'Hearn and a couple of guys down in Texas. So, I mean, these are guys that they're really close with. So, yeah, that was a bit of a hit. But then on the heels of that, you get even more young guys come in, and it's like this whole burst of energy with Michael Massey and Nate Eaton on top of, you know, Nick Prado from a couple weeks ago, and the guys who've already been here with MJ and Bobby and Vinny. And so it's quite a change just in a week's time of just the dynamics and just the vibe, I think, that you've seen in that clubhouse.
Vahe, I want you to pick up on that because I know you wrote about it on over the weekend. But first, I love the insight and the behind the scenes of a trade and how the word gets out on that. And it kind of goes to show, doesn't it, Lynn, that players aren't following the team through the media. I mean, anybody who has been paying attention to your reporting and Sam and Vahe's columns and any other form of media knows that Witt was on the block. I mean, he was. It seemed like he was an obvious trade. The speculation was for him to have been traded, and I guess maybe they did know, and then it happens, and you react. You're going to lose a teammate that you've had for several years, but maybe people will find it interesting that players were looking to the media and to you and other reporters to find out what was going on in the trade world.
Well, it was talking to Dozier after the game is interesting because, he's another guy who's been around for a while. And him and Witt are, two of the closer guys. I mean, they had locker next to each other. Like, I can't remember a day probably this season, maybe going back a ways, where you haven't seen the two of them in some conversation at some point when you walk into a clubhouse, because they're just always right next to each other. And Dozier said afterwards, he said, yeah, every year it was rumors about Witt getting traded, but it never happened. And he said he really didn't think it was going to happen this year. Like, obviously he'd heard the rumors and everything, but he didn't think it was going to happen this year, especially once he got to that point. So he was surprised, and he was, he was one of the ones who he said, he was fighting back tears when he was saying goodbyes. But yeah, he said he was caught off guard. Like he had heard all the rumors, but he just didn't think it was happening this year. Okay,
so Vahe, they got a 4-game set with the Red Sox this weekend, and it's not the same Red Sox team, probably not headed toward the playoffs, but still the Red Sox, right? And look at what happens this weekend with a lineup of rookies and some who have been with it, like Bobby Witt, been with the team all year, but many of them joining the team just in the last few weeks, and they take 3 out of 4. And the game that they lost was notable for having all 9 position players and the starting pitcher be drafted by the Royals, developed by the Royals. And it was only the 3rd time in history they put out a lineup, including the starting pitcher, with all the players coming from the Royals organization. I guess when I saw that note, I kind of said, "Has it been that infrequent?" But yes, it has. And of course, they lost that game. But other games, the Nick Prado walk-off home run game and the 12 RBI game on Sunday by the rookies. I think that was the one that you attended. That's a nice weekend for the new look Royals.
Nice weekend. And first sound check. Can you hear me? Okay.
You sound good.
Okay. So I wanted to make sure that was going right before I said I've got chills. They're multiplying.
Nice tribute.
Yeah, to our dear Olivia Newton-John, and that's probably overstating it a little bit about the Royals that last weekend. But there was something in it, and Lynn can speak, I think, to the the broader spectrum of this whole feeling all season. But I tell you what, when the Prado thing, I just seen the replays. I wasn't there that night, but that was, like out of the Little League World Series, right? Like as Nick kind of reflected on as one of his last walk-offs. It was so childlike and energizing for a team that's 43-65 at that point, right? When they win that game. And you just saw a little something different there. And by the way, these are all things you could just call quirks, right? Okay, the lineup from Friday. Okay, maybe it's a little quirky. Part of that, Zach Greinke coming back. And the thing from that game was the bookended home runs by rookies. Only the third time in Major League Baseball history that's happened, right? MJ Melendez opens the game with a home run. Nick Prado walks it off. 12 RBIs the next day. It's all of that, but also I think the dynamics that you see. There seems like a weight lifted. And we'll see soon how much of that is the chicken and egg of it's easier to have fun when you're winning versus it's easier to win when you're having fun. I mean, these things kind of are sometimes shapeless and hard to really put your fingers on. But I can say this, from the times I've been in the clubhouse this year, just a totally different feeling in there, in a room that suddenly feels like the youth is influencing the rest of the room more than sort of the status quo, the heavy feeling of yet another bad start, just sort of seeming to dull everything. Nothing just seemed to be kind of crackling the way you want it to feel. And just the scene the other day, I don't want to make too much of a post-game scene a couple of days in a row, and they'll be tested this week in a big way. But there was something there that told you they're, to use the term from the Hosmer call-up, flipping the switch and all in on what this group is going to be. And I think we see 5, 6, 7 parts that are likely to be the core of the future here, everyday core of the future. And I just think it's really invigorating right now. And to your point, Blair, at the very start, it makes it interesting, right? We know the record stinks. We know that what comes the next couple of months doesn't offset the rest of the season, but we also know it's about right here, right now, and what the future is and engaging that future.
Yeah, look, I think the biggest problem a team can have is one of the biggest problems a team can have that's trying to sell tickets is being not being interesting, and just fans not caring about a team. And at least with the moves that have been made in the last few weeks, the Royals have changed that. They've flipped the narrative. They are now somebody you pay attention to, and we're watching Michael Massey and Nick Prado and Nate Eaton take not their first at bats, but some of their first at bats. They're all in their first month as major leaguers, and we want to see them. We want to see if their upside is what they've shown in the minor leagues. And that, to me anyway, that's why I'm turning on the Royals every night and interested in not so much in outcomes, but just individual performances, and see if it can work together, and see if they're better than the pieces that they're replacing. And I'll tell you what, let's do this. Let's go to a break, and when we come back after hearing from the University of Kansas health system, I want to ask Lynn about how they're going to fit all these guys into the lineup, and what their versatility, how that's going to help Mike Matheny make some decisions when it comes to positions and lineups and such. So let's hear this first from KU Med.
March 4th, 2015, I got out of the shower and felt a lump in my left breast.
We were able to quickly uncover that she had 2 subtypes of breast cancer, each of them requiring separate and unique treatment plans. This is why you come to the University of Kansas Cancer Center.
It is critical to be treated by a team of experts in that specific cancer type. If you don't start with us, I think you'll have more questions than answers.
Why would you go anywhere else?
Back on SportsBeat Live, talking Royals with Lynn Worthy and Vahe Gregorian. And by the way, those 12 RBIs by the rookies in Sunday's 13-5 victory over the Red Sox, most RBIs by rookies in a Royals lineup since 1995. Vahe had his tribute to Olivia Newton-John. That's my tribute to David McCullough, the historian who passed away on the same day. So, okay, Lynn. Mike Matheny, he's got to be a little energized by all this, I suspect. And what was he gushing about the other day? Was it a triple? Who was it? I can't remember who hit the triple, but it was a real hustle play, hustle triple. Was it Eaton? Okay. So maybe his energy level's up a little bit, but how is he going to manage this? What's the idea now going forward? What do you do with all these rookies and who play who are versatile, play multiple positions, and is he trying to find positions for everybody, settling in a batting order? How does he play the final couple months?
Oh, the lineup's going to be day to day. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I remember, I think it was a couple days ago, somebody had emailed me about not having a set lineup, and I can't remember actually if I got back to him, but if not, let me just tell them right now that ain't happening. You just settle in, just get used to the changing lineup because you got so many moving parts and so many guys that they want to play, and even in games. I mean, I suspect that you'll see during games a lot of late inning moves to get guys into the game. You know, whether it's playing matchups or whether it's for defense or so. I think that's going to be the way things play out for the rest of the season. Just thinking about guys like, Nick Prado and Vinny Pasquantino. So Prado is probably one of the better defenders you're going to see at first base. But Vinny doesn't really have another position besides first base and DH. So to get him in the lineup, he's probably going to play first base sometimes. And that means Prado might be in the outfield. Now, problem with that is in the outfield, you're also going to have, the one sort of static person is Michael A. Taylor, best defensive center fielder in baseball right now, and he'll be in center most of the times. But you still in the outfield spots, you got MJ Melendez is going to be out there because you got a guy named Salvador Perez behind the plate. So when Salvi's not behind the plate, MJ will get some time there, but otherwise he's going to probably be in the outfield or at DH. Again, we already mentioned DH is going to have some time for Vinny Pasquantino. In the outfield, you also have Kyle Isbell. You're also going to see probably Nate Eaton, who just came up. Hunter Dozier could get some time in the outfield, depending on if he's playing some third base. Third base is another spot where you'll see Nicky Lopez. Nicky Lopez plays some second base, but then you also have Michael Massey, who you just brought up, who's going to play some second base. If Nicky's not playing third base, then you could have Bobby Witt playing some third base, which you're starting to see a little bit more of. But, of course, Bobby plays some shortstop. If he's not playing shortstop, Nicky can play some shortstop. So, yeah, we can just keep going all day with this.
Can you start over with who's on first?
No, I mean, that's exactly right. There are all kinds of options available. But so bottom line, what the objective is to see who can play where best, what a lineup, what the most effective lineup could be, and we're talking about a team that I know we're getting a sneak peek at 2023 with this team, but it's certainly not all the pieces. There's still Adalberto Mondesi, what his future of the club would be. There's Drew Waters, the outfield prospect now in the minor leagues that the Royals got from the Braves. Is this I guess to what extent can we look at the final 2 months of the season and put some hope on the Royals and at least envision what this team might be like for next year?
I think what the final couple of months of this season are going to be is one, getting guys some experience and some time in the major leagues, and two, evaluating where they might have some openings or some holes they need to address, or where they might have some strengths that they can deal from. So, I mean, the final 2 months, and this is at the major leagues and the minor leagues in some cases, like you mentioned, Drew Waters. He's gotten off to a really good start in his short time with the Royals. What he does in these last couple of months maybe makes them decide how they approach this offseason. Is he somebody that you consider for the big league club out of camp next season? Is he somebody that you say, okay, we'll start? He's still going to need some time in the Myers to work with their hitting development people. These last 2 months might sway how they approach that. And then the guys that they have in the major leagues, taking a look at them. Excuse me. and having an idea of like, okay, are they going to be ready to play every day next season, or is there going to be, are they going to have a need to go and fill those spots with some acquisitions, or are they going to have guys that they feel like they're loaded that one spot and they can deal from that? I think that's what you're going to look at in the last couple of months of this season. I don't think it's just going to be, okay, how are we going to play this group going into next season? I think it's going to be a whole lot of evaluation and also just getting guys development time. And the other thing is you could have some of these guys down at AAA, but the Royals, at least certain people in the Royals, believe that they'd be doing better off getting that development in the major leagues right now than at AAA, especially at the end of the season. They feel like AAA, the gap is not only wider than it has been between AAA and the major leagues in recent years, but at the end of the season, when most of those guys, the top guys at AAA, have already come up, the gap, you're really not getting as much development, or you're not facing as high a level as you would if you're still at AAA, compared to bring those guys up and throwing them into the fire at the major leagues right now.
Yeah, but Vahe, so far so good, right? And and these guys are going to get, I don't know, how many games are left? 50 or so, somewhere in the maybe low 50s for a number of games left. So plenty of chances to get some major league at bats for players that the Royals want to get a hard look at. So but I guess my question is, does this put the Royals a little bit behind schedule when it comes to being a playoff contending team, a meaningful baseball in September type of team? The fact that they are, they are going with as many young players and going into next season with probably, because they don't have Merrifield and others, a little bit more uncertainty than maybe we would have thought when, this was going to be the year that they approached 500, and next year was going to be the playoff year. At least that's, that's a narrative that crafted by media members. I think based on some conversations with Royals officials. But now it almost seems like you've got to set it back a little. There's a little bit of time to get this thing developed and to get the young players used to Major League Baseball. So, what does this do to the Royals' timetable?
Well, a couple things, Blair. One thing, we start this conversation with they're already behind, right? I think this year you'd hope to see at least kind of a way station or a portal that was established to next year, and we don't really see that. But in lieu of that, we see a lot of the pieces that I think, let's put it this way, a lot of the pieces that better be part of what's coming next, or it's really going to be a problem. And we see a couple of things going on here, right? You see the new dynamic of the clubhouse. Again, I shouldn't overstate that, and yet I think it matters. You see these meaningful at-bats for guys that some of whom, like Dayton has pointed this out to us. This last year, this time, Michael Massey was at AA, right? Or even high A, I think AA. And so these guys are shooting through the system. Not only are they shooting through the system, the way is being cleared a little slower than maybe some Royals fans would like. But with that is going to come a lot of one step up, two step back moments. That's just going to happen. But the thread connecting all this is we want to watch this. Blair used the term earlier in the show about this is a sort of developmental time too. I think we're at a place right now where if we see 6 innings of 1-run ball from Chris Bubich and they lose, 4-3, that day is probably a net positive in a lot of ways. You start seeing more and more glimpses out of these young starting pitchers. That gives you a little bit of an insight. And just one last thing too, it's just kind of funny about this. I don't know what the broader plan was all along exactly, but the fact that MJ Melendez came up when he was struggling because of injuries, he was struggling at AAA because of injuries. That to me is a really interesting turn of events for the way this season has played out, because he ended up being here sooner than they wanted him to be here. And it hasn't been perfect, but it's been pretty good. And look where he is now. And so I think that just, to me, is a snapshot of what you hope is going to happen with all these guys, that maybe some of them are here a little sooner than maybe they ideally would have liked. On the other hand, it's now. Now's the time to take the turn.
Vahe, just to clarify, MJ was struggling and he came up because of injuries at the major league level. it almost sounded like you were saying he was struggling because of injuries. I just want to make sure people realize
yeah,
he wasn't injured.
I need, as you guys know, I need an editor. So yeah, that was very much the point. But thanks for clarifying, Lynn.
And he's been on fire here lately. Boy, his balls carry. Wow. He's got this beautiful stroke, and it just seems it's not a violent stroke. It's just, Bobby Witt can take a pretty hard swing, but Melendez's swing just looks so effortless isn't the right word, but so smooth. And the ball jumps off his bat. The home runs, one of the home runs he had in the Red Sox series, the one that landed in the water, just a beautiful swing. And anyway, I've seen it a few times from him. Was he up to? Is it 13 home runs this year? And maybe with a shot to get to 20. And how cool would that be to have a couple of rookies with at least 20 home runs? I mean, the Royals don't have seasons with veterans getting 20 home runs each, but they could have 3 players with at least 20, and 2 of them with Salvi, of course, with 2 of them being rookies. And again, I think I said it recently, and I'll repeat it because it's more true now than it was earlier, that I think it's going to matter how the Royals play out the string this season. In past years when they were, barreling down a 100-loss season, it didn't, they ended up winning more than they lost in September in some of those years, but it didn't matter. Ultimately, it didn't matter, and it was kind of false hope for the team. But with so many guys who are going to be part of this, what you think is going to be the next playoff team, it does matter how they play down the stretch, and they are going to. It's worth paying attention to this team, and I'll be interested to see what attendance and TV ratings and those things that measure interest are in August and September for the Royals.
I've seen. Oh, go ahead, Lynn.
Well, I was just going to say, and Vahe mentioned it earlier, that the idea that the results maybe don't matter as much. I think you got to balance that a little bit or temper that a little bit, just because obviously it's if like the example of Chris Brubich goes 6 and only gives up 1 and they get a loss, they're still positive, to take from that. But I think the idea that we talk about the energy and the excitement and people want to see the young guys, and you heard a lot of that when they were in Toronto, and that series they won 1-3. And I think if you have the young guys and the energy and the excitement, and you go 1-3 for the rest of the way. Remember, now we're coming off a series where they just went 3-1. They took 3 out of 4, and it's a lot easier to feel all this excitement, energy, and everything when you take 3 out of 4. If they were young and exciting and go and losing or losing 3 out of every 4, I think it would be a little bit different as far as the interest and everybody taking that positives out of things. I think there's got to be some sort of a balance there. I don't think it's quite as much as just individual development is all that matters. I think they still need to win, otherwise, or at least, I'm not saying they've got to play 750 ball the rest of the way, but I'm just saying I think that, losing, winning 1 out of every 4 the rest of the way is not going to be good enough. I think they need to win as well as they're developing to keep sort of this interest and this positive vibe going too.
Lynn, that's a great supplement to the point, and I think you're 100% right, because part of this is carrying that energy forward, and it just certainly by almost definition would dissipate if they're losing 3 out of 4, right? I mean, it just is different. So you're right; it has to all go together. And Blair, to your point too, you think about this. I mean, I have seen, I think some Royals fans are a little conditioned to the sense of fool's gold, right? They're out of it. And, now they're winning some, big deal. But I do think the key difference here is that it's basically the nucleus going forward that is going to be the nucleus going forward. It's not stray parts and a kind of a island of misfit toys being brought together. I mean, this is what they're planning to work with. And so I think you can take a little different kind of stock in that from this, assuming there's something to take stock in the way the rest of the season goes.
Right. I love the analogy Lynn made about the Toronto series and this recent Red Sox series. And that Toronto series, not only they got the win, and they could have won 2 other games, but they didn't. They didn't lose, and they got hammered pretty good in one of them. But in this Red Sox series, they could have lost one of the games, but they didn't. They got the Prado walk-off home run, and even in the first game where Salvi, homer to give him a little distance, that game was tight for 6-7 innings. So that there is a difference. I think maybe when we sum up this season, we'll take a look at those 2 4-game series to kind of see as pivot points for this year. And so the Royals, to schedule, if we're talking about getting wins with this young team, not going to be easy over the next couple of weeks. They start 4 with the White Sox today with a real doubleheader. So games, not a 2. I think this is right, Lynn. Right, 1 ticket, 2 games today, and with the White Sox starting, I think at 3:00. That's a 4-game series with Chicago. Dodgers in for 3, best record in baseball right now, or at least they share it with the Yankees. But anyway, they're at the top of baseball. Next week, a road trip to Minnesota and Tampa Bay, also playoff hopeful teams. So won't be easy for this young team, but it'll be fun to watch and see how they fare against this group.
Blair, quick flashback. When I think of the pure doubleheader, now Lynn might be too young to have experienced this, but I bet you weren't. I mean, I remember at Veterans Stadium, $2.25 for the doubleheader for the adult ticket, and if an adult bought you the ticket, it was 50 cents for the kids. 25 cents a game. I mean, I know we're getting older, but I felt like we needed to take that trip down memory lane. Did you have anything like that going, or did you, Lynn?
No, well, I'm getting younger, so I can't relate to this getting older thing. But no, I don't remember the 50 cent tickets there. No, that's before my time. Vahe.
I can remember looking at a Major League Baseball schedule and seeing a team with, I don't know, anywhere from 5 to 10 scheduled doubleheaders in the season, and 1 game right after another. Not 7-inning doubleheader games like we had in the COVID season, but yeah, and often with the double headers back in the day, no guarantee it'll be this way tonight. The games were short. Players knew they had a full day of baseball. Those games came in at 1:58 sometimes. So here's hoping for short games for Lynn Worthy tonight. He'll be covering the Royals and the White Sox. Okay, that'll do it for this week. Thank you so much for tuning in, and big thanks to Vahe, Gregorian, and Lynn Worthy, and to our producer, Monty Davis, also to the University of Kansas Health System. We will do this again next week. So until then, take care.